Here we go. Another training. Everybody ready today?
I better be since I'm doing the training.
All right. Well, this is our next session of our leadership training. I would like to introduce the Eric Lashley. That's going to be our presenter again, of course. And so we will begin our training. First, I want to say thank you to the Texas Library Association for not the Library Association. I'm sorry. The Texas State Library Archives Commission for providing funding for allowing us to do this training. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric Lashley.
Well, good morning, Texas librarians. Nice to see you guys again. Spring has definitely sprung here in California. So allergy season, which I never have allergies, but so if I have to blow my nose or, please forgive me. So the topic today is, do you want to win? That is the topic that I want to talk about. And I designed this training a few years ago because I felt it was important for leaders to really understand the concept of winning and what it means to be winning. And especially when you're dealing with people of authority or power, and how does a leader get what they need for the organization? How do you win the resources that you need to fulfill your mission? And so part of, again, being a good leader is finding those resources or getting people to help you fulfill your mission. We've talked about mission. We've talked about leadership styles. If you want to win as a leader, you must be willing to be judged by others and not let it get to you. Again, there is an element of taking risk. And remember, again, leadership is not about maintaining the status quo. So again, you've got to be willing to take a risk to change status quo and to become a winner in terms of that. In the chat, if you would do me a favor, if there's a situation that you're currently in that you feel you need to get a win, either budget, a new building, staff, there's issues with staffing you want to win, censorship, board relations, anything that you feel like as a leader you need to get a win, put that in there, and then we'll talk about it when I kind of get through with my presentation and maybe do a little crowdsourcing and try to figure out how we can help you come up with a win. So please put that in the chat. I used to use the term a lot, do you want to win? And I used it a lot when I was dealing with my staff. So let's say my staff was coming to me and they were proposing a project or a budget request. And I felt in some ways that they were in a poor job of convincing me to make that ask. And so I would often ask them, do you want to win? And of course they did want to win. And I would say, so if you want to win, you need to change your tack. You need to change what you're doing, because if you continue to do it, then you're going to lose. And it was a way to say, I'm going to say no unless you can convince me differently or take on a different way, approach this problem in a different way. And I've had to learn that. And it's a really tough lesson a lot of times, because you're comfortable approaching problems a certain way. And a lot of times, again, do you want to win or do you want to stick to your guns? And this is the way it should be. And so you always need to look at what is the outcome and how do you want to win? I had a perfect example yesterday for this class about, do you want to win? I was in a meeting with the city manager. We were talking about public works projects, and the library is the biggest public work project that we have on our calendar right now. And we were talking about making a change to a project manager for the library program. And I could tell the city manager was upset with the public works director. And he basically said, if you want to win on this issue, you need to fix the fountain. There's a fountain in front of our city hall that's been broken since 2021. He has been promised over and over again that this fountain would be fixed. It has not been fixed. It's gotten to the point where the city manager, in his own evaluation now, is going to be judged on whether they can get this small public project fixed. And what was really interesting to me, I'm sitting in the room, it's getting very uncomfortable. The public works director doesn't understand that he needs to get a win here. He needs to win one for the team. He needs to win one for the city manager, or literally he's not getting other projects done without this win. And it was really interesting to me that he didn't pick up on that. And everybody else in the room is picking up on, he has got to get this fountain done by July. There's just, the city manager, his evaluation is getting impacted by this job not getting done. What's really interesting about that is you can see the different styles, behavioral styles and leadership styles. The city manager here is a very happy-go-lucky person. He's one that is a laissez-faire leader, which is a very rare leadership style for a city manager, where he, again, trusts the staff to take care of the things. So for him to get to that point where he is dropping F-bombs and saying this needs to get done by July is really serious, right? And again, what was really interesting is this Public Works was trying to be very logical on why it's not getting done, not understanding, in my opinion, his job is on the line. And not only is his job on the line, other future projects are on the line to gain that trust. So basically, city manager said, I have lost trust in you. The council has lost trust in me until we get this very symbolic. I mean, again, in the big scheme of things, but he's barely at the point now where he's saying, stop paving streets and get this darn fountain fixed. So again, this public works manager really needs to learn, do you want to win? And what do you need to do to win? And it's as simple as getting a fountain fixed. From time to time, I need to remember this lesson, like, do I want to win or do I want to just be right? And what's best for my organization, for me to be right or to actually get a win to keep things going in the right direction? So again, why do we talk about winning and losing? I mean, we're in a very competitive world, and you think, well, libraries don't compete with people. Well, obviously we do compete with people. If you're in a municipality, you're competing with the fire department and others for resources. If you're a nonprofit, you're competing with other nonprofits in your area. So there's always competition for resources. And so you want to find a way to, again, maximize your resources so that you can move your mission, get to your mission. But winning also has a lot of psychological effects. It's a big motivator. Internally, you feel good when you win. Everybody, wants to be the Philadelphia Eagles after the Super Bowl. Everybody wants to be a part of a winner. You'll see more jerseys of the winners or the Lakers or whoever wins the NBA championships after a win. So it's a very big psychological motivator to win. You get pride when you win and get that ribbon. You feel pride. You got a trophy case. You feel really happy that you win. So again, psychologically, winning is a really good feeling. When you win, other libraries look at you as a role model. They see that you're doing things right. So you become a role model, and that's really good for the profession that we have these libraries that we can look up to. You're setting an example for others to follow. But we also talk about the flip side is the losing. But again, a good leader knows that they're not going to win all the time. And so losing is just as important, and learning those life lessons from losing. One of the biggest lessons I ever learned is in my opinion, the biggest failure was a failure of a bond election. I was a brand new library director, and we failed by 187 votes, which was just terrible. I felt terrible, but it was the best lesson for me as a leader in terms of I analyzed, why did we fail? What could I do as a leader to change that around, turn that around? You lick your wounds, you figure out what could we have done differently. And for me, it was I needed to lead the project. I learned that I did not lead the project. I was not being a leader. I deferred to people that I should not have deferred to. Again, another public works director I guess the public works directors are getting beat up in this program today. But I learned that, no one knew the library more than me. Nobody knew where we should go and where we should be than me. And I needed to lead it, and I needed to take the reins of that project and lead it. And so a couple of years later, we passed the bond by over 6,000 votes. So we lost by 187, which was really tough at the time, but it ended up a better project, a larger library with a larger bond, with greater community buy-in. And that all came because I learned from my failure. And it was a big failure. And in some ways, again, it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my career. So again, losing, you learn from your mistakes. If you're a really good leader, you learn from your mistakes and you grow. You learn resiliency and humility. Losing is not easy, especially in that case. We were the only library in the country that had a bond failure. And I was interviewed by American Libraries and Library Journal on, why was Georgetown, Texas, the only bond failure in the entire nation? Oy! Not fun. It is not fun to be interviewed by your, professional organization on why you failed. What did you do, Eric, that really stood out? So that was very humbling to me. But again, I think in some ways we were lucky that we embraced the failure and we really we learned from our mistake. It actually led to the firing of a city manager. I mean, this was a huge issue. And so that was a big loss. And the new city manager comes in, and I remember the first week that he came to our city, we had a reception for him at the library, and he came directly up to me and said, that was terrible that you had this bond failure. We're going to do better, and we're going to make sure that it passes. And I'm glad that he had faith in me in a very short period of time and gave me the opportunity to lead the project. Again, losing can actually set you up for success, like it did for me. Again, looking back, that loss actually set us up for success. It's like we did everything opposite than what we did the first time. We really brought in community engagement. I think we're afraid to listen to the community before, and this gave us a lesson like, no, listen to the community. They're going to end up voting on this anyway. They need to be a part of what's going on. So the other thing is I want to talk about, I've been talking a lot about win and losing, and there's, the third way, third alternative, which if you've read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you will see that he talks about the fourth habit is win-win. And win-win is a very different dynamic than win-lose in the traditional, black or white, right or wrong. To win, you need someone to lose. And so Covey takes a different perspective. Instead of a very competitive way of looking at the world, he's looking at it as win-win is trying to find a cooperation. And he's trying to find that both parties are satisfied with winning, or both of them get something out of it. It's not, I win, you lose, you win, I lose. And it really is breaking that culture. But it's really difficult because we've been taught and grew up in a culture that there are winners and there are losers, and it's really hard to come to a win-win. But it is out there. It is very difficult to get to win-win, and there's whole books on how to get to win-win. But for me right now, read the 7 Habits is really great, but you still need it in one way or another. The leadership is about winning. So I want to talk about winning over a boss or winning over someone who has authority or power over you. And a perfect example is yesterday. You need to notice when you're losing trust, or the leader or the person in power is losing faith in what you're saying or what you're doing. A lot of times, especially a boss, they will start micromanaging. And in the case of yesterday, here's a perfect example. So you have a laissez-faire leader. Their natural style is to just delegate and let you run your organization. They will never get in your business. But all of a sudden, when the city manager is getting in your business, that's telling you something. It is telling you that, holy cow, this person is now completely gone off of their style because something you've done or something that has happened has changed the dynamic. And the dynamic there was that city manager is getting pressure from the city council. And so you need to be aware of the buttons that need to be pushed, or who's pushing the city manager's button or your boss's button or the board's buttons. What is the pressure that's coming on that now you're starting to feel it? So you've got to have that awareness of the environment. Like, what is really going on here? I mean, was the city manager really upset with the public works director? Yeah, he probably was, but he's upset more because it's coming back to him. It's reflecting poorly on his leadership, where the city council is basically saying, you need to crack down on your employees. You need to do this because now, we want this symbol right in front of the city hall, this fountain to work. And again, he should have learned that lesson a long time ago. So again, you need to fulfill the boss's needs, you need to adapt your workflows or your work to meet their expectations. So he needs to get that fountain done. It has got to have water, is like the city manager kept saying. It's got to have water in it by July. He doesn't want any excuses at this point. And so again, you need to learn their styles. You need to know what they really want. You need to know what buttons are pushing for them. Observe, if you're in a meeting, you're observing who the boss is praising. What is about their work that is the bosses seems to feel is important. One quality that distinguishes, I think, really good leaders with successful careers is the attitude that they can win over any boss that they have. It really doesn't matter the style of their boss. They're feeling like, I have the ability to show them that I can win them over and I can get things done and act accordingly. How do you win over a board of directors, if it's a nonprofit, friends board, library advisory board? How do you win over a board? And I think a lot of times, again, you want to be as transparent and honest as possible. You want to come across as being extremely honest. You want to actively listen to your board. They've joined the board for some reason. It may not be the best reason, but you want to know, why are they supporting the library? Why did they join this board? How can, what changes do they want? Some of them may have joined because they want to see change. And you want to understand, well, why do you want to see change? What is it about the experience of the library that you want to, change? You want to be reliable and dependable. You want to show up ready for the meetings. You want to be so overly prepared that any question that comes your way, you'll be able to answer their question. Or if you can't, you'll get back to them in a timely manner. You want to respect their time. You don't want the board meetings to go on forever. And you want to encourage a very collaborative environment where their input does matter. It's not just a rubber stamping of what you want. It's like really understanding, how can we get the board? Because a lot of times you really actually need the board to do a lot of the work or to be the advocates for the library. So again, really creating that collaborative environment where they're willing to go out and help you is really great. You need to just, again, to demonstrate competence and expertise. And then for me, again, that failed library bond, I wasn't showing my expertise. I was the one in that whole city that knew more about library service than anybody else. And yet I was deferring to people I should never have deferred to. And that was about my lack of confidence, my lack of experience, my doubts in my own leadership. But again, it's like I needed to get uncomfortable. That's okay with me being uncomfortable, but I needed to step up and make things happen. No one else was going to make it happen in the right way. So you need to be knowledgeable, show your board that you're the expert in the room. Highlight your skills and expertise. Show that you're solution oriented, that you take the initiative. You're very proactive. And when there are mistakes, you admit your mistakes. When you tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. The other thing is, like, obviously for all relationships, you communicate effectively and clearly. You want to articulate your vision. There you go again. Leaders have a vision, and they're going to get everybody to follow that vision. They use the data to back up where they're doing, but they also use those stories to hit the heart. So you want to hit the head and the heart. You want people to join you because, again, they really believe that libraries can change the world or change their communities. You want to be concise and focused as you go through the meeting, and be prepared for any questions they have. Again, there's nothing worse than them asking questions and you not following up. Normally, if I couldn't answer the question at a board meeting that night, that day, usually the next day I would email the board the answer to the questions. You don't have to wait a month to answer their questions. And you need to understand, again, their role. What is the role of the board and their responsibilities? And when is it not your responsibility? You need to let the board be the board, and seek their guidance when you need their help and when you need their advocacy. The last thing I want to talk about is, how to win over a reluctant staff. This is one that's really big for leadership, especially, again, leaders do not believe in the status quo. So part of your job is change management. You've got to see change happen. And how do you win a reluctant staff where they're not happy with change? Change is scary to them. It always comes down often to fear. They're afraid something's going to happen, that they're going to lose their job, or they're going to look stupid, or they're going to look poor. So again, the first thing to do to win over staff is have a really open lines of communication. And a lot of times, our easiest way to do that is you have a staff meeting and you outline the change and all that. But the fact is, a lot of times, as y'all know, staff won't say anything in a staff meeting. They don't want to say anything in front of anybody else or get in trouble or whatever. Y'all know it. I mean, I can see heads shaking. So staff meeting is not always the best way to, when you're having change management. You really need to invest in those one-on-one meetings. And you can read by body language. You can tell when staff are not enthusiastic about the change that you propose. So there's nothing wrong with asking them, why, what scares you? What's your fear? What are your concerns? And be very open and not defensive when they tell you their concerns, because you really want that open lines of communication when you meet with them. If you don't, it's going to be really hard to really make, especially fundamental major changes that you need. That we all of us hit that at some point where things have got to change. And you've got to have those, come to Jesus moments, and like, we have got to change or else we're losing. And it comes down to that. We're not going to win with city council. We're not going to win with our city manager unless we see change in some direction here. Provide clarity. Again, they want to know, most of the time, one of the biggest fears is they don't understand the why. What is the why? Why are we changing? Everything's great. Why are you coming in and, upsetting the apple cart? So be really clear about the why. And you really need to understand the why too. It's not just, I just want to change just because I like change. You really have to understand and let them know why there was a need for change. And here's the other thing. If they don't understand the problem, or we can't agree that there's a problem that needs to be solved, it ain't going to happen. That was the thing that I learned the lesson, because, I would come in a lot of times and I would see a problem. Hey, we've got a customer service issue here or whatever. And I would talk to my staff and they would just be looking at me like, what are you talking about? Everything's great. So if you can't even agree that there's a problem or do a good job of explaining and being really clear about what the problem is, it's going to be really hard to make those changes. To do that, though, again, you need to foster a really safe environment where people are willing to share their ideas and be really willing to give you honest feedback. Because let's face it, sometimes, the idea that you started out with isn't the best idea, and you're going to be, driving off a cliff, and you want your staff to let you know this is going to cause other issues, unintended consequences that you may not have actually thought about. So other part of that is creating a culture where you recognize and appreciate staff when they do things right. You don't just blow that off or just, well, that's what they're paid to do. You really need to create an atmosphere where recognition and appreciation are just a part of the culture. You're always celebrating your successes. You provide training and skills for them to do their job. Feedback moments. So I'm a really big believer in 360 evaluations. I believe that evaluation should not be a surprise to the employee. It's just a review of what they've done. And when things have gone poorly or a mistake's been made, you've gently corrected them and gotten them in the right thing so that you're not really talking about those gotcha moments during an evaluation. However, I really have found when you as a leader open yourself up to allowing your staff to anonymously evaluate you, that can be a really humbling moment. It can tell you, again, where your weaknesses are. And again, I think it builds trust in your staff that you're willing to take it, just like, you're willing to give it in terms of evaluation. And it would really, I think, again, this is something I really believe in. A lot of times my cities didn't do that, but I would do it myself. I think, if your city doesn't require a 360, I still would try to get feedback and try to do it so it's anonymous or, that you really don't want any repercussions or any ill feelings coming about it. But to be honest with you, I think your staff respects you more when you take their feedback seriously, and you then hopefully build a better workplace. The other thing is just, again, be empathetic to your staff. Remember that every individual is different. What works for one may not work for the other, and a keen sense of empathy always goes a long way. And the other thing, as a leader or as a manager and a leader, delegate with care. I think one of my strengths has always been to match tasks with individuals' strengths. I play to people's strengths and try to minimize their weaknesses. And if you can really give someone a task to someone who's passionate about something, it's gold, right? They're going to be engaged. They're going to enjoy the job better. So again, they're going to do a better job for you when they feel like their passions are there. So the question I started out with was, do you want to win? And I think the answer is, yeah, you want to win. So maybe the question is, do you want to do what it takes to win? And that may be a different answer. And again, that one is changing, often making you feel uncomfortable. You're doing things that you're not natural at. You're having to step up in a way that you're not accustomed to. You're taking risk, and that is a big part of leadership, is taking risk. So with that, I want to see if there's anything in the chat that we can talk about. Okay, so the first one I see here is on budget funds for additional staff to cover additional open hours required by the Texas Library and Archives Commission for our increased population competing with roads, law enforcement, etc. And this is in Rockwall County. Yep, this is a big one. I think so many times libraries are competing for budget funds, and especially you're competing with fire, police, roads. You got law enforcement is always going to win. The amount of money that they waste in law enforcement, we could hire multiple positions. So for this one, again, it is for me, do you want to win the budget? This is where, again, a lot of times you really do have to work on your with your advocates. It is so hard. You can make your push. You can work with the city manager. You can work with trying to influence city council as much as possible. but it really helps to have a strong advocates from the community writing letters to the city council or the county commissioners or whoever to really show there's a need for more resources for the library. Again, using the head, showing data or, hey, we're falling behind from state standards. We're not meeting state standards, hitting them with those facts that we need this to do our coverage of hours. We need more open hours to the public. It's kind of a catch-22. If you're not open, guess what? People are not going to use the library. It's that simple. But using advocates, again, to tell those stories of why the library is important, showing up at a council meeting or commissioner court and speaking those 3 minutes or whatever the time they allow you to speak really goes a long way. I've always been shocked at how often the council or commissioners will completely flip on an issue just because one or two people sign up and speak. So again, I think having, as part of your leadership and wanting to win, is having your advocates signed up and ready to go. So like here in Burbank, we're going to start a new library project, and we know already that when you're spending that kind of money, millions of dollars for a new library, there's always going to be people who are not happy with spending that kind of money. And so we know that the letters to the editor are going to start coming up as soon as it hits the press, how much the library is going to cost. We're going to get people who are going to start writing letters about what a terrible idea, who needs libraries these days. And so again, one of our strategies is to have letters ready to go. So we get one negative letter, we're going to have 4 positive letters coming out into the newspaper. We're going to be very proactive and just start flooding. As soon as we're ready to go, we start flooding people with the newspaper with pro-library letters so that we don't let council get scared by a few loud voices. B wrote, IMLS funding, win for all libraries. They fund and support libraries, archives, museums in all 50 states. And yes, this is a huge issue. I mean, obviously last Friday, the Trump administration has stopped funding or basically trying to shut down IMLS. Well, it's a big deal for us. I mean, it's a big deal for you guys in Texas too, because what you may or may not know is a large percentage, it's over 20% of the state library budget here in California is from IMLS. So right off the bat, if we do not continue to receive IMLS funding, then that's a 20% cut to the state library, which means the databases, the programming, other grants that we get or are available to us from our state library goes away. We were just applying for a IMLS LSTA grant last week, and we didn't do it because I knew this was coming, which was terrible. But again, so that it was a $70,000 or $50,000 grant for sustainability is not happening now for that. So the only thing we can do now, again, is write your congressmen, your senators, try to get that back. Hopefully the courts will overturn that. But this is going to be a tough fight. If that money goes away, it will trickle down to all 50 states and the territories. There's no doubt about it. Let's see. Budget. We're starting budget defense soon, and we're asking for a position promotion and the new staff person. Our staff are at the max capacity, and patrons keep wanting more and more. Exactly. So Heather, it's the same thing. You need to really get the data to your council and to the city manager, but you really need those advocates. It's the advocates who don't have any dog in the hunt that will really help you move forward. And it's so important. Having your friends group show up, having the board write a letter in support of your budget. That was very successful. It was one of the few things that I really think my library advisory board did really well is during each budget cycle, they would write, I mean, they're in the the founding document that started the library board. It says their advisory to the city council. So they took that seriously, and they would write to the city council a letter very civilly, you know, hey, the library's requesting these budget improvements. We support, you know, their request. And it worked a lot of times. I remember one time they actually invited the city manager to one of their board meetings, and very strategically after the meeting or during the meeting, they went and showed the city manager where we had these pallets of books that had come in, and we just didn't have a cataloger to really keep up with the demand of the books that we were ordering. And just showing him the pallets of books from, you know, Ingram that were stacked up because we just didn't have the capacity to do it got us a new cataloging position. So whatever it takes, you know, you really just to sit back and hope that they fund things, it's just not, you have to be proactive. But the best people to do it are the citizens. Having the residents really push for you, it makes all the difference in the world. So having, you know, that investment in your friends and your board and your foundation, if you have one, to really, this is one of the best things they can do. They can, especially your friends group, they can give you more money through support of a fund for a position like this than they could ever raise for you. I mean, because once you get a position, you know, this is why they don't want to fund it. It usually stays in the budget for years to come. And your friends can never raise that kind of money with benefits and all these other things. But their advocacy can actually pay off. So Natalie wrote, for those who do not get a say in who is in their advisory board, it is important to meet with new advisory boards and give them an introduction to your library. Agree 100%. Helps you get to know who they are and what they're concerned about regarding the library, and also a chance to educate them on your current operations and goals. That is absolutely great advice, Natalie. So again, whenever I had a new board member, I would always invite them to lunch. I would take them on a tour of the library, take them to lunch. If I didn't know them at all, especially again, if they, for whatever reason, were appointed by the city council, if you're lucky, the city council may actually ask your opinion on different board members. A lot of times, you know, we were recommending volunteers or other people who we thought would make good board members. But if you don't know them, definitely take them out to lunch or take them for a tour, invite them for coffee or whatever. Really get to know them on a personal level. I think it's so important to do that because, again, you need them as your advocates. And there are times now, especially in Texas and others, where people are joining the board for not the best reasons. A lot of times they're joining the board because they do support this movement to challenge books or have books removed or taken out of access to children or for whatever reason. And you need to know that too. And you, again, hopefully educate them on what the role of the board is. The board's role is not to remove books. It's not to limit access to materials. The role of the board is to, you know, promote library. And that also means that you're promoting ideas that you may not actually agree with. So again, I agree. Anything, if you can get someone early before they're in their first meeting to even explain to them how the board works, what are the, you know, what's the agenda look like? Who are the other board members? What is the dynamic of the group? What are the goals moving forward? What's the mission of the library? What's the strategic plan? Get them ready to go so that that first meeting isn't awkward and they can kind of hit the ground running. So are there any others out there that want to chime in on what issues are out there that you want to see a win on or that you're facing now? I know budgets are a huge issue, and I feel like I'm always working on budget. It's like as soon as you finish one budget, you're starting the next budget. Any other issues out there? Okay. All right. With that, then I'll end it early. I hope Did I see a hand go up or?
Yeah, I just saw that too.
Okay. If your hand went up, go ahead and speak up. But if not, I'll go ahead and end this. Again, I hope everybody, realizes to win, a lot of times you have to change. I'm hoping that my public works director here changes because I'd hate to lose him, but it just shows you how things can change quickly. And you need as a leader to pivot, and you need to understand that there are other dynamics going on a lot of times when we're dealing with human beings, and he has to understand the pressures that our city manager's under. And if he could just get that darn fountain fixed, his life would be so much easier, and he could win other things moving forward. With that, if you don't have anything else, I'll let you go early and wish you a great week. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And thanks for attending the session. Y'all have a good day.
Bye, Eric.
Thank you, Dorothy. Good to see you.
Sorry I was late.
I'm going to see Warner Brothers today.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
I'm meeting with one of the executives of Warner Brothers.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, we're going to try to get a display in the new library.
Oh, that's